All right, folks, welcome to On This Hill, our podcast from Church on the Hill. Got Nicole with me today. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good, glad
How
to
are
hear.
you?
Yeah, you're going to be preaching with me, or you're going to be preaching this next Sunday. I'll
Yeah.
be at the very
Yep.
beginning. You'll be preaching this next Sunday. But we're actually going
Yeah.
to talk about last Sunday, which you didn't preach, but you were there for.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yep.
our pastor, and you pastor our young adults, so you pastor them through this conversation. The conversation, if you weren't here on Sunday, the conversation was looking backwards over all of John and kind of looking through the lens of the very first question that Jesus asked John and Andrew, which is, what are you seeking? And then kind of following that idea through the rest of the gospel to say, what are we seeking, and are we seeking the right things?
Yeah.
So, yeah, in that conversation, what do you think? What do you think? I don't know. You can answer it from any perspective. Do you have keen insight in what young adults are looking for today? Is it different than other people and what we're looking for?
Yeah. Young adulthood is like such a unique season of time because you're an adult and you get to make adult decisions, but you still have limited experience.
Yes.
And so I think a big piece is helping to frame the right kind of questions to be asking, because there's like those seasons in our lives, like we can look back, and I'm not a young adult anymore, even though I still hang out with all the young adults, and like I can look back at my 20s or other seasons and see like the faithfulness of God or the lessons that I have learned. And young adults have that to some extent.
Yeah.
But the further on, like you have more life experience than I do, and sometimes I need to lean into that. And so yeah, it's this unique place where a lot of times you're making decisions that will affect the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And learning to ask the right questions, I think, is one of the most important things.
You sound so much like a disciple of Bruce Stefanik. You do. It sounds so much like something that Bruce, like a Bruce.
I answered your question with a question.
Well, yeah, but also he'll just often say, and he's so right. Like he'll be like, someone say, how do I find the right, spouse? And he'll say, that's not even the right question.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you become the person that someone would want to be with? He's just always doing that. And like, oh yeah, you're right. Darn it, I'm not even asking the right question. Like, not only do I not have the right answer to my question, but I don't even have the right question for an answer. So
Yeah.
you do sound a little bit like Bruce Stark. I like it.
I've spent a lot of time learning from him.
That is true. And also, yes, I do have a little bit more life experience than you.
Yeah.
By how much? I am 54. I am
37.
Yeah, for the first time the other day, at the very first time in my life, I went to Wheeler Dealer. Not the first time I've been to Wheeler Dealer. Go to Wheeler Dealer a fair amount. It's a little crazy store in town.
I love Wheeler Dealer.
It's a crazy place. It is a crazy place. If you want overripe avocados and throwing stars, that's the right place for you. They've just got the weirdest stuff, and a cardboard cutout of John Wayne for some reason.
Yeah. A little bit of everything.
Yeah. Anyways, for the very first time there, a clerk asked me if I qualified for the senior discount.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a big moment for me.
Do you qualify? I don't know what
No,
the limit is. I'm still young enough. I don't even need to know yet what the range is.
It depends on the place. Different places have
Okay,
different numbers,
okay.
but they are 55. So I told the lady,
You're so close.
I said, you have the right instinct. You're right to ask, but I am just a few months away from getting
Okay.
that discount. I shouldn't have.
No.
But I kind of wanted to, like, give me the discount. I mean, if you're going to insult me with asking
yeah, if
me,
you're going to think I'm that old,
then I
maybe
should get the discount.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great observation that they're adults making adult decisions, but also with limited life experience.
Yeah.
That's just everyone's experience.
And there's some things that are amazing about that season. Like, this is a season where they have a lot of freedom in ways they're not going to have in other seasons of their lives, most likely. Like, a lot of them could just drop everything and go join the mission field
Yeah.
with a lot less work and effort and thought and planning as
Right.
it takes in other seasons of life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Think about the Pearl Great Price is something I go back to all the time. It was a guy who went and sold all that he had in order to buy the pearl, or the same with the treasure in the field. Went and sold everything he had, bought the field to get the treasure. When you're young, selling everything you have isn't as hard as when you've accumulated.
I'm gonna get rid of this junky car that I don't know if it's gonna work or not anyway.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's still it's everything someone
Yes.
has, and
Yeah.
so it's a big deal. But you just realize, oh, this can actually get harder the longer I
Yeah.
wait to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think of like the rich young ruler. I guess he was young, but
Yeah.
he had to weigh the cost in a
Right.
different way. And so that's one of the things I love
Yeah.
about young adults. But your original question was, what are they seeking?
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are seeking to figure out who they are and their place in the world. And it's a lot of kind of identity stuff and figuring that out. They're figuring out career or schooling, like what their giftings are, who they are. And some of them are beginning to look at like, oh my gosh, like there are other people in the world who need the kingdom, and it's
Yes.
like this season, like my heart for young adults is that in this season, they begin to grasp how good God is,
Yeah.
and how worthy of everything he is, and how valuable investing in his kingdom is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that's, I'm sure there's a lot of things every young person is seeking, but that one that you bring up, who am I, is a big part. And in the sermon, we talked a lot about the temptation to have temporary solutions to eternal problems. And that's an eternal question of who am I? It's a really deep question that can be answered on the surface. Like, if we go pre-young adult and you're a middle schooler and a high school, you're answering that question like, oh, I don't know, I'm in this clique, I'm a
How do I
athlete.
fit?
Yeah.
in-
I'm a
with my
theater
peers?
kid. I'm
Yeah.
a musician. You're trying to find that fit. And by young adult, you're like, okay, that's not really enough to base my life on. So what's the deeper, who am I? And trying to find my identity, my real identity, not just the temporary identity of I'm an intern at this job and I hope to make more one day. But what's the bigger?
Yeah. And a lot of them are seeking relationships. Like a lot of them, like that's what they want is
Yeah.
a relationship and marriage and figuring out dating and rejection, navigating that, all of that.
Rejection.
Yeah. It's a real thing, which we've all experienced in some way or another.
Oh no, everyone always loves me.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I've experienced that differently
That
for
might
your
be-
life.
That might be more of a you thing. I don't know. No,
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
everyone deals with rejection, and even after you find your spouse, that doesn't mean
sure.
you're never going to deal with rejection again. But that certainly finding the life partner is a big part of most people's experience in their 20s and 30s. Like that's when most people are finding someone that like, oh, this is who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And that, what percentage of brain space does that occupy in people?
I have no idea. I mean, they're debating how much brain space you actually use, so
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start that conversation.
Yeah. It might be less for me.
And I think it depends on the person. And that's
Yeah.
where it's like, oh man, if in young adult, like that season of life, that's the season where kids who grew up in the church are most likely to walk away.
Yeah.
And that's also the season where those who walk with Jesus their whole life are most likely to cement that. And so it's like, this is the time where it's like, if you can really grasp a hold of not just the faith that you grew up in,
Yeah.
but like owning your faith and really trusting and believing God, that changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And the invitation that we talked about on Sunday that Jesus says, because they answer his question with the question, he says, what are you seeking? They say, well, where are you dwelling? Where are you abiding? And then he says, come and see. And I feel like it's a great come and see time,
Yeah,
great come and
absolutely.
see season
Yeah.
for young adults. It's like, why don't I just test and see how good God can be? Why don't I try out these legs on faith and see like, oh, if I commit this, will he show up? And he does.
It does.
Yeah.
But often not in the way that is expected. I think young adulthood is also one of the seasons of big disappointments.
Yeah.
And that's where, when our faith rubs up against the expectation of who we thought God was, and where we have to face the reality of who he is,
Yeah.
that's a huge wrestle and a huge thing that has to be navigated. And it's so much a part of that solidifying our understanding of
Yeah.
who God is.
Yeah, I thought God would be this for me, or I thought he'd show up in this way by providing this. And then there's the disappointments of who you thought you'd be.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, I thought I'd get this degree and become this, or I had this dream of being an entrepreneur and I started something and it's not worked for me. And yeah, it's true. It's I'd say, I don't know, it might be one of the bigger failing opportunities or failing seasons in people's lives, which people take heavy, but actually you should be trying and failing a lot of
Right.
things in that season. Like,
Yeah, it's
if
kind of
you're
a red
never
flag if you're
failing-
not failing at anything at
exactly.
all.
Like, wait a minute, are you not trying anything hard or great?
Yeah.
Yeah, seems like a great time because, like, say you have less far to fall. It still hurts, genuinely hurts when you fall, but you have less far to fall. Like if you lose everything as a 22-year-old and you lose everything as a 52-year-old, it feels generally very different.
Very, very different. Yeah.
Yes.
The analogy that comes to mind.
I can't wait.
Well, and like the part that isn't so offensive is it's kind of like you're a kid with your training wheels on, you know.
Yeah.
There's this part of adulthood of like, oh, you know, if you fail a class in high school, it's not going to affect the rest of your life, or, you know, in the same way, there's like protections. There's like, okay, here's what you do, you know, these things. And as an adult, not that there aren't protections, but you don't have the same protections that you had. Like if you commit a crime when you're a youth, you know, you're going to get in trouble, but it's not going to be on your record necessarily most of the time. But when you're an adult, like you have more accountability and all of a sudden you're facing the consequences.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like taking all of the, like the pads and the helmet, all those things off, and you feel it a little bit more. But yeah, when you're 50, if you fall, it hurts a lot more than when you're 20.
Yeah. Literally, if you fall, it hurts
That's
a
the
lot
part
more
that I
than when
was
you're
laughing
20.
at.
Yeah,
Like,
it
oh,
is.
you're just a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, those bruises last a
Yeah.
bit longer. And
I don't have the medical alert button yet, but I can see it in my future. Help I fall and then I can't get up. Yeah, it is true. And I think, you know, that's a valuable thing to think about for young people is like, why not risk? Like, what do I have to lose is not a bad, idea. Because generally, as you get older too, more and more people and things are depending on you.
yeah.
You know, it could be that the work is depending on you more because you've moved up from, worker B to some kind of manager or foreman. And failing at that level is different than at the worker B level. Or you can be married and like, oh, I really need to make this work. I've got people depending on me. I got a wife or kids depending on me. Or just even in organizations in the church, like, well, I'm not, just in this little position anymore. I'm doing something that the people are expecting me to show up. They're expecting me to communicate. They're expecting me to do these things. So yeah, it's a good time to try your legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you experienced like seeking something and finding, disappointment or thinking, I don't know. I guess I'm just asking what that's
What
like.
disappointments have I faced?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, so many in my life. I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot in the context of this and the sermon and just kind of holistically, so much of what John was talking about is like, hey, I'm doing this so that you will believe. I'm saying this so that you will believe, so that you will believe. So I've been thinking a lot and praying a lot about belief in the last week. And I've just been reminded so much of how much our belief is tied to trust.
Yeah.
They're very interconnected. You can't have trust without belief. You really can't have belief without trust.
Yeah.
And how much that should inform
Yeah.
what we believe. And so there's this baseline for John that is like, man, when we face something that doesn't make any sense, then who do we trust? When it's like, I can't make sense of this. I don't know what's going on. None of the things in front of me make sense or should be real. Like they're unbelievable. Like Jesus returning is unbelievable. So of all these unbelievable things, what's the source that I trust?
Yeah. Yeah, some of those things that maybe are modern or in people's lives right now would be like, God, I can't make any sense of why you wouldn't heal.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just doesn't make, why wouldn't you? I can't see any good coming from this, so it like trying to trust God through something like that when you're like, I just can't imagine why you
Yeah.
wouldn't.
And when it faces a reality of like the loss of a parent,
Yeah.
or, those things like, oh man, I know you can do this, but you didn't. Like, what do I do with that? But your question was personal,
Sure.
and I like turned that around. So I'll answer personally. I mean, yeah, I didn't expect to be single at 37. That for sure. There's definitely been disappointments, many disappointments in my life. I've had some health things go on. And I remember about 2 years ago, I was just in a season where I was really disappointed. Like my life was not at all what I thought it was going to be. It was rough. We had COVID, and then we had fires and ice storms. That all happened globally or locally in Salem.
You did
Then
go through crazy health stuff.
I had
one
health
after
stuff
other.
right after that, and that knocked me out for about a year. I could barely function.
Yep.
And in that, my health got worse, and I had like gained weight, and was like, I didn't think I'd be back in this place.
Yep.
And I was just so disappointed. Like, this is not the life that I thought that I would have. And I think most of us can say that in some context or another. But really, this isn't the life that I thought that I would have. And I was just facing disappointment so strong at that point. And it was a worship night at Church on the Hill. If you haven't been to one, highly recommend. And I just went into the corner and was praying, and God gave me this vision. And I don't really see in mind pictures.
Yep.
So when I have that, I usually know it's a word from the Lord. And he gave me this vision of this plant that was in front of me. And the amount of emotion I felt attached to this plant is something that I can only describe from a vision. I like plants, but I don't love my plants. But it felt like everything was based on this plant survival. And it was shriveled up and it was dying, and I was desperately trying to save this plant. And that was all I could see was this plant. And I felt like the Lord just said, will you trust me with this? And I was like weeping. I was like, God, I don't think I can. Like, I really don't think I can. I'm like trying to restore whatever I can from what seems to have just fallen apart and is dying. And I don't know if I can let go.
Yeah.
And he just, again, just so gently said, will you trust me with this? And my response was kind of similar to John's. And he's like, where else would I go?
Yeah.
And I was like, fine.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I trust you. And as soon as I said it, the plant shriveled up and died.
Oh,
like,
nice.
just like it like burnt to crisp and ash. And
I don't know if you're familiar with testimonies. They're not supposed to go like this.
yeah. Right.
And then it
And then
flourished.
everything fell apart. But that's what happens a lot of the
Yeah, that is
times.
true.
Like, that's the reality. And I was so broken because everything I put my hope in, I finally handed it to God and chose to trust him. And it just died. It just like was reduced to ash. And there were so many hopes and dreams in that in my life, like marriage, but not just that, like health, like all of those things. There's just so much attached to that. And God just gently lifted my head. And I was in the most beautiful garden that he had created for me. And I couldn't see any of it.
Yeah.
Because all I could see was this one thing that was falling apart. And that plant was dying. And that plant needed to die. And I was holding on to it. And he just took my hand and he scooped up the ash and he just started sprinkling it over everything as like a fertilizer.
Yeah.
And it was just this beautiful moment of like, oh, I can trust him. None of this is going to plan. But my plan was this little plant, and that sucked. Even if that plant had grown, all I would have seen in my life was that plant, and I wouldn't have looked up. I would have missed everything God had.
Wow.
And
I've never heard you share that before. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I've carried that for a long time. And then the next year, God continued that vision. He like brought me back to it. And he brought me to the verse Isaiah 54. And it says, "Sing, O barren one, who do not bear, Break forth into singing and cry aloud, you who have not been in labor. For the children of the desolate one will be more than the children of her who is married, says the Lord. Enlarge the place of your tent, and let the curtains of your habitations be stretched out. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. And I felt like God was like, this has been this really safe place for you that I've cultivated for you. And now it's time for you to open this up and invite people in.
That's awesome.
Because God doesn't just want us to believe him. He wants to invite us into participating with him.
Right.
You know, he has so much to share. And it's like, he will build these beautiful things for us and with us. But it's not just for us.
Yeah. Yeah, belief I think in the Western way of believing something is so shallow compared to what God is inviting us into.
Yeah.
I mean, belief is not shallow. The Western view of what it means to believe something versus God's view, or you could argue the Hebrew view of what it means to believe something, is actually be able to put your whole trust in it. Like you're saying, the trust is, because we think of belief as just an intellectual, yes, I believe that. Yes, I believe that. Of two different news, outlets. I believe this one, I don't believe this one. But his form of belief is this, like, do you actually trust it? Will you invest in it completely because you can put your full weight on it or not? Yeah, that's such a different thing that I'm constantly being challenged to, because my default is to want to just intellectually agree, like, yes, I'm thinking right, and that's what's important. And thinking right is incredibly important because it can lead to right living, but it also cannot lead to right living. It can just lead to pride of thinking, I have this right, as opposed to I need to live this right.
And then it becomes about us and what like we can hold on to and we can do in our strength.
Yeah.
Rather than it's actually releasing.
Yeah. Oh, that's really beautiful. That's really good. Even that those scriptures too in Isaiah 54 were really important to Trisha and I for a long time as well.
Yeah.
Just believing that and believing it in the face of all of our circumstances that said, there's no reason to believe this. There's no, like, where's the proof in any of this that, there will be more. But just saying, okay, God, we're going to believe. Well, there was an artist, Michael Card. He's from my day.
Okay. Which is why I haven't heard of him, but continue.
Yes, you wouldn't have heard of him. No. I do believe he is still living, and he might even still be recording. He's an incredible artist. If you're my age, you already know that. If you're not, check out Michael Card. Look up a song like Scandalon. Scandalon is one of my favorite songs of his. It's great. But part of that, it goes, believe the unbelievable and come be a fool as well. That's what he says. God's Own Fool is the name of that song. But he says, believe the unbelievable and come be a fool as well. And I think about that a lot, just that one particular line. Like, God, I'm going to believe the unbelievable. That what you're saying is true. Because what I'm seeing isn't saying this, but you've proven yourself over and over again. I have every reason to trust you despite my eyes. But my eyes are telling me one thing, and you're telling me another. I'm going to go with you.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked up the definition of belief, so like just the Merriam-Webster one. And it's a belief is the mental acceptance or conviction that an idea, statement, or proposition is true or real. Now, this part I really like. It involves taking a stance on the nature of reality or truth, whether or not the belief is supported by absolute, objective proof or direct knowledge.
Oh, that is pretty good.
Yeah, and I feel like that's that place where we get the gift of being able to know the ultimate end of the story. But all of that in between, we don't know.
Yeah.
And we're probably not going to know.
Right.
And just that piece of like, okay, my belief isn't based on knowing all the details. I like to know the details. Like, great, God, if you could have just, if you could just tell me at 20 what this would be like.
Right.
I wouldn't have chosen ministry if I knew what it was going to be like. So true. There's so much that it's like sometimes we want the guarantee of knowing all the details. We want all of those things, and there aren't guarantees in the small sense,
Yeah.
in the temporal sense,
Mm-hmm.
but we actually have the ultimate guarantee
Yeah.
in the deeper sense.
Yeah. God is totally willing to offend our intellect in order to get it off of kind of the throne of our life and being
Yeah.
the king of me understanding something. Like, because that's typically just how we live. Like, I have to understand something in order to agree with it and move in that direction. And he says to us, I think, I'm not quoting scripture here, but what I feel like the invitation is to belief is, I want you to believe something more than your eyes sees.
Yeah.
That there's more to this life than you can see or imagine. And if you follow me, you'll see those things. And that means that my intellect isn't always going to get it or understand it, because I'm usually getting that input, through my eyes, through my senses. And he says, I want you to follow a different sense. I want you to follow the Holy Spirit and what that looks like. And it's a beautiful adventure, but it is a challenging one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're constantly having to lay down our rights or our idea of things, and which is good because our ideas and our way of doing things is never
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
But it is hard.
Yeah, several times recently I've quoted Anselm and what he said, which is, we are faith-seeking understanding. I've quoted it on the podcast, I've quoted it in the sermon, but I do think about that a lot. Yes, we start with faith, and then we ask for understanding. We don't just say, I don't even need to understand. No, it's better to understand. God wants you to understand, but he just knows, like, in the transformation that happens with us, when I have a revelation, I have to start actually applying it to my life before I have any hope of actually coming to understanding of it. And that, because we are experiential in the way that we learn. I like learning intellectually. I like it. I really enjoy sitting down and reading something and feeling like I have learned something. And I have gained input, but I don't have any ownership of it until I have mastery of it. And I don't have mastery of it until I try it and probably fail a few times with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I find even in Scripture is I can feel like I've learned Scripture, but really all I've done is maybe memorize some, or I've got some input. But until I apply it, I'm not going to have any kind of a real ownership and mastery of it.
Yeah. Knowledge puffs up. That's
Yeah.
what can be dangerous. It's like if we gain all of the knowledge, then we can gain some kind of confidence with
Yeah.
it and lean into our knowledge, and then we begin to trust that
Yep.
over God or over these other things. And it can be a dangerous place, but knowledge
Yeah.
isn't bad.
No, knowledge is great. He wants us to gain knowledge. It's an important part of growing up. And one of the things I love about young adults, I really, really love about young adults, is how smart they are. I don't think you can hardly get smarter than around that time of life. Like, your brain is finally fully coming online. It's it's fully developed. You're at the top of your faculties. You just don't have, a lot of experience. Like you were saying earlier, you just don't yet have a lot of experience. If I could go backwards for anything, and I've never wanted to go backwards in time. I've never wanted to be 20 years old again.
Oh man, I've wished before.
Not me. For lots of reasons, I don't want to go backwards. I only want to go forward. I like aging. I don't want to go the other direction. But if I could go backwards for anything, I'd go backwards for my mind. If I could have the sharpness that I might have had in my 20s, my ability to retain things the way that I had. And not that I was the sharpest tool in the shed. I wasn't. It was just at the top of my game. There were many other people who had a completely different level of game than me, but that was, at my smartest. Unfortunately, it was not my wisest.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
a big difference between being smart and being
Yeah.
wise. And I wish I could bring my wisdom backwards with me, or my intelligence forward with me, and put those two things together.
Yeah, there's one thing that's really interesting about that is like that age when people start wrestling with their faith at young adult age, that gets me excited
Yeah,
because it's in the wrestling that we end up solidifying our
Yeah.
faith. We end up going, and God isn't afraid of wrestling.
Yeah.
Like that's not. So when people, young adults come in with hard questions, they ask me like hard questions, or like, hey, what about this passage? I've been talking about that on Sundays, but I think it actually maybe means this. What do you think? And I'm like, let's look it up
Yeah.
together.
And that's like, it can happen earlier, it can happen later, but the 20s is where a lot of that does
Yes.
happen.
Yep.
Is they're like, wait a minute, I've just taken this by faith or by faith in whoever taught it to me at some point. But now I really do want to understand origins. Like, how am I really supposed to
Jesus.
think about
Yeah.
this? Or, wait a minute, what about all of this wiping out peoples in the Old Testament? Or what does it say about my sexuality in the New Testament? And there's a lot of questions that people realize, like, oh, I have a problem in that it's a good thing I've accepted this as fact, but now my brain realizes I don't have a good reason to accept it as fact. So what's the reason behind
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. And that's such a good place to be. And it's such it's just like a milestone.
Yeah.
There's this guy, his last name is Fowler, and he created like a stages of faith development, kind of similar to Eric Erickson's stages of development. And it talks about like you need that season as part of your development.
Yeah.
But also in that season, they're not usually entrenched as much as we
Yes.
get in as we get older.
Right.
We kind of think sometimes like, okay, we figured it out, I'm locked in, and
Yeah.
like they're more open in a vulnerable way, but
Yeah.
also in a really valuable way, to be able to maybe see things differently. And so that's why it's so important, I think, for the generations to connect with each other.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I think I feel like I'm in the middle, but some of the ones who are older, like you need to be challenged
Yep.
by the questions of those that are younger and be willing to say like, oh, maybe there's some things I've done always and I've just always done them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not how it needs to be.
Yeah.
Not talking about like gospel centered truths, because those never change, but other components of it.
No, I 100% agree. I was thinking the same thing. You said, the generations need to be connected. And I was thinking when you were saying that, what a scary time that can be for parents when their adult kids suddenly start maybe believing something a little bit different than they believe it. Or maybe even it's just the application of that belief is a little bit different than what they think it ought to be. And it's a really important time to sit down and communicate and talk about like what does this mean, and why do I believe it this way, and why do you believe it that way, and what can we agree on and what can we disagree on and still have unity.
Yeah, that's
Which is
so
huge.
valuable.
Yeah.
I think what the temptation is, if you watch your kids begin to question things, it's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna run away. They're gonna be those kids that just
Yeah.
completely leave the faith. Like
The
we need to
slippery
lock
slope
this
argument.
down.
I hate slippery slope arguments. I know there is a truth to slippery
Yeah.
slopes, but I've just heard I've heard that argument deployed so many times in false ways, that, whatever, Bible versions or something like that. Well, it's a slippery slope because if you start reading the NIV, you know that they're, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from, misgendering God into a female. I'm like, wait a minute. I think you might be making a slippery slope out of something that's not a slippery slope.
Yeah, if I can give parents any advice for young adults in that season is to try and slow down when they begin to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And try not to respond out of a place of fear. And it's a scary thing when they begin to question the things that you've taught them and you've invested in them, especially if you've raised them to know God. When they begin to ask those questions, and maybe they're questions that you don't know the answer to, it can feel like they're leaving. But what they're doing is actually one of the most important things for their faith. And if you can come alongside and create a space for them to ask those questions, and you can help them in the wrestling,
Yeah.
that's part of like that transition to parenting a young adult versus parenting a younger kid. And that you can create a space for them to be able to wrestle in a really healthy way.
Yeah, they're taking ownership of something. It's going to become theirs. But to do that, you have to let it become theirs. It can't be yours. Yeah.
And that's scary.
It is.
It's another faith piece. It's
Yeah.
like entrusting that to
Yeah,
God.
and we're not arguing that you can believe anything that you want.
No,
That's the
not at
argument.
all.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to come to right, orthodox, not by orthodox I mean correct thinking of the Bible.
We just
not,
changed our
not Eastern
denomination.
Orthodox, but that
Right.
that definition of orthodox
Like,
thinking
what
of the
is-
gospel.
Yeah.
What is the gospel? And how do I apply it? And the reality is some of the application of the gospel will change from generation to generation. I'll give an example. I grew up in a church. I love this church. This is not me making fun of it by any means, but they had a list of do's and don'ts that they called the advice to members. And when it was made, it was really good advice. It was really wise. Like, hey, this kind of a activity could lead down the wrong path. This kind of activity can lead down the right path. Do less of this, do more of this kind of thing. But it was very much fixed in time and space. It was very much about that time and that generation. And some of it stopped making sense after a while. I'm like, well, why am I not supposed to go to the movies? It says don't go to the movies, but why am I not supposed to go to the movies? I have a at the time, like in the 80s when I started asking the question, like I have the ability to go rent a movie and bring it home. And you're fine with that, but you don't want me to go to the movie theater to watch it. Like, well, there didn't used to be that option. And so but they never changed with time and thought, oh, we need to give better advice than we used to give. Or maybe not even better advice, more updated advice than we used to give. And I think sometimes that happens even in one generation from a parent to a kid, where you'd say, oh, you should never do this. And the kid's like, well, that's kind of changed now. That's not exactly the same. And you're not dealing with a sin issue. You're dealing with a wisdom issue. And now current wisdom means something else because the culture's moved on from where you were. And later our kids have that freedom to not just live out of the context of our culture, but to live in the correct context of the gospel culture and let it be a counterculture to wherever they're living.
Yeah.
I don't know if I made any sense in saying that. I said the word culture like 6 times in a row.
I think one of the most valuable things along that line that you can learn in that season is how to differentiate our culture versus kingdom culture.
Right.
Because sometimes they get really, really confusing or like muddled up in our mind, and even like the way that we live out church and what those things look like, which is why I think one of the most important things someone can do in their life is go on a cross-cultural missions trip.
Yeah.
Even if you don't plan to go in the mission field, even if you're 50 and you've never done it, like I really suggest doing it once, because I didn't go overseas until I was 27.
Yeah.
And my first time, I led a trip in a Middle Eastern country.
Yeah.
I don't recommend doing it all at once. My first,
yeah, that's true.
But it was a great experience. Like God did so much. But that shaped so much of the way that I perceive the world and God in a really necessary way.
Yeah.
And so just, in that context of like, okay, and that really helps with being able to come back into the culture we're in. And it's kind of like a fish in the fishbowl. Like we just exist in it and we don't really realize. And so sometimes when we begin to apply things that are actually the culture that we're in to what we expect of kingdom culture. But when you see the church functioning and flourishing in a different culture and they do everything different, not everything, they're worshiping God, they're praying, they're seeking him, they're like all the key components, they're in the word, like they're there.
Yeah.
But it looks completely different.
Right.
It helps us realize, oh, okay, maybe I've got some things mixed up.
Yeah, a lot of what I think are laws are really just preferences.
Yeah.
Our culture prefers this, their culture prefers that. They're both able to worship with completely different preferences, like the way we do music or the way we do teaching and preaching, the way that we do fellowship. All those things are very different. I mean, even from the way we start a service, what time we start a service in.
And that's changed a lot even since I've been
I
here.
thought timeliness was godliness, but these people are more godly than me, and they come an hour late to church and started a completely different way, and don't leave until everyone's been greeted. And a lot of those things are preferences. So in the message, maybe just get to the place of wrapping up. We're talking about what are we seeking, and Jesus is inviting people, his disciples, into abiding with him, and then being filled with the Holy Spirit. And in the end, we see in Revelations that it says, look, this is Revelations 21, verse 3. It says, look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. That's where we're going. That's like you were saying earlier, like we have the privilege of knowing where this is all going and what wrapped up looks like. And so we're all in these different, boats. I'm in the empty nest boat right now, married, a bunch of years, 2 adult kids, and that's my boat. You're in the single boat, but we're all going to end up at the same destination.
Yeah.
We're all gonna get to the same place. I
And
love that.
I think that should leave us with a deep confidence and a peace, the peace that surpasses understanding. We talked about disappointment and those kind of things. And those things are real. They're also short-term and temporary.
Yeah.
And when you're in the middle of it, it is.
Oh yeah, it feels like everything.
Yeah, it does not feel like that. But we have the biggest assurance that we could possibly have. Like, we are on a firm foundation.
Yeah, Paul could call his trials light, momentary afflictions. And you're like, I've read your afflictions. They don't seem light and momentary at all. But he had this eternal perspective. Like, oh, this feels like a lot to me, but I'm going to choose to call it light and momentary afflictions, because in the bigger picture, I know where I'm going. I know the ultimate comfort that I'm going to get in him.
And I think that key word that you just said is choose. And just recognizing, like, okay, I see everything around me. And that's what kind of John is wrapping up in this of like, hey, I'm saying this so that you will believe what is the most true of everything.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most true of everything. The creator of the universe is making a way, and he is going to bring heaven to earth, and he is going to restore things. And if we choose to follow Jesus, we get to be part of that.
Yeah.
But then we get to make those little choices in our daily lives when it doesn't look like it from what we're seeing. But
well, as we end, maybe a couple things. One is Nicole's going to be preaching twice the next 2 weeks, once at Kaiser, once at South, or 3 times at South, because there's 3 services at South, but
2
all in
different
one
places.
Sunday. So the first one is going to be here in Kaiser, and it's going to be within the context of this month that we're calling COTH Community Month, and bodybuilding, because we're going to be talking about the body. Yeah. Thanks for the flex. I like that. For those of
I
you
didn't
that
actually
are
flex. I just pretended that I'm not a bodybuilder.
you
I
that
should
are
actually try.
audio listeners, you please go to the video and see Nicole flex. And then also maybe give you a chance. What's happening in young adults right now?
Yeah, so young adults in May made a transition to meeting in small groups. And so we had grown enough where it was taking more effort for just less intimacy in the context of like really doing life together. And because we want to be the church. And so my heart for young adults is to see them actively engaged in their faith, not just coming for a message from the front, because we do that on Sundays.
Yes.
And so we need to go deeper. So we have different small groups that are meeting different days of the week, different ages, some mixed, some just men, some just women. There's a marrieds one. So those are happening. And then in the fall, we're going to launch even more. And then we're doing a once a month gathering. We're just getting everyone together for the summer to hang out, like meeting at a park or having a beach day, those kind of things. And so it's a great time to get connected with a group of believers.
So young adults is high school graduate to 30?
Yeah, 18 to 30. So we sometimes have like a high school senior kind of doing a little bit of both youth and young adults at the same time, which is a great way to make that transition.
All right. And are there some of those groups that are open, some of those life groups that are open if someone wants to join over the summer?
Yeah, I think most of them are still open.
All right, and they just go to the website and look for life groups?
Yeah, so you can go to the website, you can go look through young adults or through life groups. If you go to life groups, you can just filter by young adults, so you can see all the young adult ones.
All right.
Either way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you following along with us. And come join us this next month. In COTH Community Month, we're going to be having a little bit shorter services all throughout July. And the reason why we're doing that is we're going to have some snacks and foods and fun afterwards. And we're really encouraging people to get to know one another. So just spend a little bit of time after service and don't feel like you got to run off. But get a popsicle with someone and have a conversation. So
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll see you Sunday.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.